The Mesoamerican Reef is the second largest barrier reef in the world, running 600 miles through 4 countries. Beautifully clear waters make up this shallow buffer zone, dispersed with complex reef systems and countless picturesque islands. Coral reefs are widely recognized as the world's most vulnerable ecosystem in the face of climate change, predicted to be the first to collapse on a global scale. Half of all reefs have died in the past 30 years. By the early 2030s, the global temperatures are estimated to rise high enough to trigger extensive heat waves too hot for any corals to handle, threatening global ecosystem extinction. Now may be the last chance to see these beautiful habitats before they disappear for good. In no other place is coral reef destruction more of a present issue than here in Northern Belize. Hol Chan Marine Reserve is the place to experience Belize's coral reefs and wildlife. Yet unfortunately, coral bleaching has devastated the reefs due to unprecedented sea temperatures this past year. The Marine Reserve's research and monitoring team may be the key to bringing back corals in the wake of this destruction, and I've been invited by the reserve to come take a look and learn what coral restoration entails. After meeting at their office on the bustling island town of San Pedro, I was led to the boat and introduced to the team taking me out. 2 marine biologists, Brittany and Marcella, would be my guides for the day.
Okay, so what is our plan here today, and what is the project that Hol Chan is pursuing right now?
Well, one of our projects is coral restoration, and where we're going is to our restoration sites, our nursery tables. Keep in mind that this year has been, last year has been extremely hot. Do you know what bleaching is?
Of course, do you care to explain?
So coral bleaching occurs when water temperatures, among other things, are far too high. Corals are in fact animals, and once the temperature is much too high, the color that they have, they lose that color, right? They lose that color and then slowly begin to die. So last year, being that it was the hottest year that it has ever been, we had one of the worst bleaching events. We don't want to... I'm gonna get technical real quick into this.
So when you're doing coral restoration, you are looking for a mother colony or a donor colony. So you need to find a healthy specimen of coral that has a big enough size that you can break off a piece of it. So you can't do anything too small. You don't want to do anything that's already sick, that's already hurting. So right now, all of our coral, they've been through this period of starvation, basically. So when they're bleached, they're not getting enough nutrition. So all of our corals right now are sort of starved. So we want to make sure that they've had enough time to start getting that nutrients back and start growing again. Because it doesn't make sense for us to go break off a piece and it's not even capable of growing right now. Because we're just going to be adding stress to that coral and increasing the risk of mortality. So what we don't want to do is more harm than good. So we want to make sure that the temperature has gone down and that the corals have had time to start getting back into a growing phase before we attempt to do any restoration work.
What was the average sea temperature?
90.
90? Oh gosh.
Yeah,
It was hot.
Above 80.
It was above 80 from...
there was a logger up in the other reserve up north of here in their shallow site that was recording 99.
99, yeah.
Wow.
So we'll check our temperature, we'll monitor the temperature for this year, and the moment it gets cooler and it's an appropriate time, we go for it.
In Belize, 12% of the Mesoamerican Reef is protected by reserves like Hol Chan, which is part of a larger protected network called the Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System. After jumping in, the destruction was immediately evident.
So in early 2023, up until June, all that's around us was bright orange. As orange as your mask. Yeah.
This area, named Coral Gardens, is now a coral graveyard. 2022 Reef report estimated that 49% of Belize's reefs are in poor health, and that was before the 2023 bleaching event. In previous restoration efforts, Hol Chan worked with the notable restoration organization Fragments of Hope, who has been working for 20 years in southern Belize with major success. Together, they grew and outplanted staghorn corals on ropes. Brittany and Marcella pointed out what remained from those projects just a few years ago. When you compare the reef from when they were outplanted a few years ago to what we see now, the effect of bleaching is jarring. They brought me to the nursery table where the temperature logger was to be placed. Corals are grown here before they can be outplanted among the reef. After the installation, I followed Brittany and Marcella around as they documented the rest of the area. There were almost no staghorn or elkhorn corals alive at all. I didn't think this much of the corals would be dead, but I was rarely able to see any of the color that corals are known for, instead swimming through a mostly gray-brown reef. I really felt the sense that they are on the front lines of a problem that has never been seen before, trying to get a grasp on a situation changing faster than they can react. As we headed to the next dive site, we passed the Hol Chan Gap, where recreational diving and snorkeling is permitted. Here they check tour boats to make sure they comply with regulations and collect entrance fees. This area, like all within the reserve, is guarded by rangers, who are posted 24 hours a day to help protect and enforce the law within the reserve. While passing through, the team gave their insights as to other threats facing Belize's waters.
My name is Pedro Velasquez, and I also part of the enforcement department and operations. Illegal activities takes place a lot around here, and illegal fishing is something we cannot stop because every day it takes place, right? But we could only control it. Unfortunately, sometimes we end up going into the bad guys that have the wrong products that they're not supposed to have. Sometimes they have they're protected species, for example, parrotfish, permanent tarpons and such like that. And then, they face the consequences for that, which is they will get charged for a certain fee depending on what product they have.
With coastal development, we're right next to the reef, as you said. The waste and runoff, is that part of the reason that coral reefs decline as well?
Mm-hmm. So the more people that keep coming in and they want the big hotels, beachfront and whatnot, dredging and all of that happens, and it's like straight to the sea. That's right here. They remove the mangroves. Not only do they filter, but they also hold soil and prevent erosion. So they remove the mangrove because our visitors want to see beachfront, right? We're not known for our beaches. We're known for our reef, right? They move the mangrove so you can have white sand, but that sand starts to erode. Things start to wash down. There's no mangroves to be a filter. There's no seagrass to be a filter, and it goes straight to the ocean, straight to our corals. Okay, you're not supposed to cut the mangroves, get a permit. They cut the mangroves and just pay a fine. They don't really think about it. It's like, oh, it's a plant. They think about the money today and not the money later. They don't think about what they're doing now that will affect down the road.
It's about sun lotion. And there's one, people say don't bring sun lotion. Some people buy reef safe sun lotion. Does that exist?
Yes, but actually, no.
Yeah.
Whenever we prefer using our sun shirts, our rash guards, instead of using the sunscreen because it is still chemicals, And they say reef safe, but
So you'll find scientific papers that tell you both. So the chemical sunscreens, there's research papers that have found that the chemical sunscreens, benzones and that stuff, that they can get into the coral and they can cause reproductive harm, mutations in the coral. So those people were like, do the mineral sunscreen, and then people looked into the mineral sunscreen and they're like, actually the mineral sunscreen as a physical sun barrier acts as a physical sun barrier on coral as well, and coral, because they have their symbiont algae living inside them, need sunlight. So both of them are bad for coral.
So sun shirts are the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think, what would you say to tourists that have no idea about coral issues or the degradation of the oceans in Belize? What would you say, or what could they do to help be better when they come here?
I think for tourists, and it goes for traveling anywhere, it's about being an informed traveler and putting power to where you put your money. So putting your money into more sustainable development, putting your money into more ecologically conscious businesses, putting your money into the local businesses, not mega corporations. It comes down to the travelers being informed about where they're going and then spending their money how they want to spend their money. And that way, then you drive the market, right? If the tourists are asking for more ecological sustainability, if the tourists are asking to see the natural condition of the place, then that incentivizes the developers to move towards that direction.
Jumping in on the second dive, it was more of the same. This zone also suffered from previous bleaching events, showcasing more of the same gray. It was exciting to see a few living corals within, which stuck out like a sore thumb, but even the clearly living corals were either tipped with bleach white or half and half bleached. You could tell they were struggling. After securing the next temperature logger in place on this shallower nursery table, we headed back to the boat to discuss our findings.
What did we see? A lot of it dead, or more than expected?
We were pretty sure that a lot of it would be dead. But yeah, to see almost 100% mortality in certain species is crazy. This is the worst it's ever been, the coral cover, in my lifetime. But it might be the best that it's gonna be for going forward, within the coral reef network in Belize, we're talking about how we've lost a lot of the work that we've done, and we kind of have to start from scratch, use the information that we learned. It's not like we're starting totally from scratch, because there's a lot that we know now. But yeah, it's reworking the way we're going to have to approach restoration, and we're losing a lot of it so fast that we really got to ramp up what we're doing. But there's only so much you can do in the restoration when the problem is the temperature of the water around the world.
Yeah. What is the the goal and the future look like for coral restoration at Hol Chan? Getting as much coral out as fast as possible to outplant, or is it about finding a set of coral that will work here?
For us, it's really important that we find the corals that will be resilient to temperature changes, will be resilient to disease, and be resilient to damages. So with climate change, we are expecting more frequent storms, more erratic weather, and so you need to not only get corals that can handle the heat, can handle the disease, but they have to be robust enough to be able to handle rougher conditions. It's gonna be a bit of trial and error, a bit of figuring it out after every event, every heat event, every storm, every disease, and just from constant monitoring that we're figuring out which corals are handling better, and then using those corals as our donor corals to do our restoration work. There's potential for looking at the genetics of corals, looking at their history through coring, to figure out which corals over a longer period of time have survived major events, and then using those corals as donor corals. And that's a way for us to sort of bypass some of that trial and error to get a jump start. Before, in the 80s, 90s, when you have super high coral cover and something happens to it and you lose a little bit, it can grow back. But once you fall down to a certain level, it's hard to build back up. So we're kind of at that point where it's like, we need to make sure that we don't lose any more, because then you're in a critical place. So we do have to get the restoration work rolling, but we also have to make sure that we're not putting effort somewhere where it's not gonna matter.
Yeah. Remember, there's a threshold that they can handle, right? It has been above that threshold for over 6 months. And even if it lowers, if it does not go below that threshold again, we don't want to be outplanting anytime soon, because let's say, okay, it has cooled down, these corals are just going to start recovering. And right now, most of these corals won't be growing. Right now, they're going to be utilizing their nutrients, utilizing all that to just keep alive, right? So if we remove a piece, we fragment it to be placed on a nursery for it to grow and then for it to be outplanted, if we do that, then the donor coral is at risk of dying. So we don't want to do that, because then that's doing more harm than good.
Yes. If the issues are global, what do you think needs to be done to stop these root causes?
That gets pretty big, because it all comes down. There's so many big corporations that contribute to all of the fossil fuels we're using, that it's contributing to global warming, and then or climate change. And then the consumerism that we've developed, that's producing all the waste that is affecting marine life and affecting the entire planet. And does it come from the corporate side of expecting them to reduce their impact, or does it come from the consumer side of making the decision to consume less and consume more consciously? And that's not
an easy
a
thing
change
to ask.
that comes quickly or comes overnight. That's generational. It's those changes will have to be very long term.
So what do you think about like what Belize can do, or even more specifically like San Pedro, what can we do, if anything, to help right now?
I think awareness and education is a big part of it. Even just for the sector that we participate in tourism, if you can make the guests more aware of the habitat that they're in, and all the things that impact it, and all the way it's connected to other things, that gets the ball rolling and gets people thinking about the impact that they have, and as consumers then asking for more sustainable practices, asking for better options to be there, and then that's the way that then we get the developers and the local community to also buy into it, if there's incentive coming both ways.
The thing when it comes to the ocean or the sea in general, everyone's like, oh, the sea is so big, it'll never end, things will never run out. And that's something we need people to be more aware of. That, oh, the fish are there, they're forever going to be there. Not if you overfish them, not if you destroy their habitats. So it's things like that we want people to realize that, hey, these things won't last forever if you don't let them, or you don't protect them. So
the scales that we're dealing in, you know, protecting reef from Mexico to Honduras, protecting the entire, it doesn't come from one person's unilateral decision, or it doesn't come from one body, one governing body, or it has to be, it's a community effort, and community, I mean, in the entire region, in the entire world, of like people deciding that there is value to the reef and we should do something about it.
And this idea of a joint effort is extremely important in the world of restoration, where new ideas come every day, and the more people that work together mean the faster success can be achieved. I had the chance to speak with an expert in this field, who gave his outlook on restoration within Belize as a whole.
My name is Ali Cancino. I work along with Fragments of Hope as their site coordinator for the Northern Reserves of Belize, which without the barrier reef, we would not have the shoreline protection that we have. We would not have the beautiful islands that we have. We would not have the coastline that we have. We would not have the fish that we enjoy so much and the corals that we enjoy so much. So coral restoration in Belize is not, it shouldn't be the responsibility of one individual entity. So it is not the sole responsibility of Fragments of Hope or the sole responsibility of Hol Chan Marine Reserve. It is always an effort between all the entities. So we can pool the resources together, we can pool the expertise, we can pool the human resources, and avoid the duplication of effort within each organization. So if we can organize and we can manage and we can figure out a way where all of us can come together for the common goal, which is coral restoration and improve coral health in the region, that already is a success. So that is our ultimate goal, where we can pool all these resources together and work with the existing organizations where we can maximize the efforts and hopefully maximize the outputs that we have.
Sure. So how does I'm sorry if I forget the name, the Belize
Sustainable Fund, Belize Fund for Sustainable Fishery.
How does that play into this new role with Fragments of Hope, Hol Chan up north?
So as part of a debt restructuring program that Belize as a country had, is that they freed up and made available, and funds were made available for conservation efforts throughout Belize, focusing on the blue space, focusing on the marine environments. There is a national coral reef monitoring network that is in place that includes not everyone, but a vast majority of organizations that are doing coral restoration and monitoring in Belize. We have common goals and we have common work plans, and the work plans are done and created, and we schedule our work so that we don't have as much duplicated effort as we had before. And hopefully within a few months to a year, we have a national policy on coral reef restoration for Belize.
Really?
Yeah. The policy would be where, rather than have sporadic coral reef restoration efforts, you have a national guidance policy, a national policy for coral reef restoration efforts for the country. So we can then see, once you have projects coming in, then we have a policy that will guide that restoration effort, so that we can maximize and increase the success of not only that project, but the entire the restoration effort for the country.
Do you think people that have been to Belize and seen the barrier reefs, do you think now is the time to see them before even more devastation comes, or do you think people can still come in the future and see the barrier reefs?
I think the time to have seen barrier reefs were like in the 80s. We had massive die-offs in the early 90s due to changes in weather, in climate change. We have these older, and this is information that we've gotten from older fishermen, and I'm too young to have seen the reefs back then. But people have seen the reefs back then and seen the massive die-off, seen the coral bleaching events, and the older people have seen the changes. Coral reefs on a whole are struggling, and this is why we need this pool effort to not lose them and to have them improve in coral health, improve the viability of these coral ecosystems, not only the coral reefs, but the ecosystems attached to it, which are the seagrass, the mangroves, the littoral forests, so that not we don't enjoy it, but our future generations enjoy it as well. So we have, and this is the hope, is that through our sustained efforts, that coral reefs will be here past 2030. We'll be here past our lifetimes. We'll be here, and the efforts that we put in, we can see 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We are being hopeful, and we are being optimistic, and we're seeing the results that has occurred not only in Belize through Fragments of Hope in Placentia, but other efforts in the wider Caribbean. So we are hopeful that we can lead as a country, we can lead the region in these coral restoration efforts and have success in having the coral reefs being viable for generations to come.
And back at the office, there were similar feelings of cautious optimism.
Answer, do you have hope for the future of Belize's oceans?
Yeah, there's hope. Well, let's define that real quick though. There is hope that things can get a bit better. There's hope that you can move on from this. There isn't that, it will return to the way it was. We saw, of all the corals that were there, the little pieces of it alive. It'd be like, hey, you survived this thing. It'd be cool to see you grow and us figure out, okay, how many other corals can survive and get more for restoration, right? But it won't be that, it'll come back to how it was. It's more like, okay, we can keep what we have alive now and hopefully keep them like that, more alive, more growing down the road. So yes, there is hope, but let's not say, we had all of this, it's going to come back like that.
It'll be different.
It'd be very different, but we gotta at least try.
I'm definitely hopeful that we can change people's mind and that we can save some of what we have. But it's definitely gonna be different than what I've known in my life. When I was in the first grade, going to the reef was a first grade school trip because there was enough of it that you could see it from the boat. You didn't have to get in the water. You could see the coral. You could see the fish. That's not a thing anymore. You can't. There's not much to see from the boat because there's not enough of it. It's definitely on the decline, but we are making leaps in what types of restoration we can do. And I think that there is potential for us to save some of it that way and keep some of it for the future. And I think a lot of Belizeans have a lot of pride in it, and that's something that we can use to do our best and protect the reef.
While present times may not boast well for coral reef health, conservation and restoration efforts in Belize are a beacon of hope, showing the power of human ingenuity, collaboration, and determination. There is a lot of work ahead of us, but it's up to us and no one else to solve these existential problems. And it all starts with awareness. We must first be aware before we can make a change, and awareness is the goal of this channel. Stay tuned by subscribing to this new channel for more exciting projects. I have a lot to offer, and this is just the beginning. Thank you for watching, and thank you for contemplating these real and present issues. Remember, it starts with you.